Welcome back, peeps. It's been a few. Guardian Games went live at the reset this week, and I've been grinding for the new compressed waveframe grenade launcher that is part of the loot pool for the event, and with the recent buffs to the archetype, it now feels more unique compared to its breach special counterparts. We'll review the new GL and figure out what role it can cover in your arsenal. Please drop a like and sub to get me back in favour with the algorithm. Let's begin. Hullabaloo is a brand new GL that is part of the Guardian Games event, meaning it's a limited time weapon, obtainable through banking high tier medals during the event, and also from the podiums in the tower when hitting high ranking tiers. It's only the second compressed waveframe GL in the game, alongside the stasis dimensional hippotrichoid. Hullabaloo is an arc element GL which directly draws comparisons to the Forbearance Breach waveframe. Before we get into the weapon perks, let's break down compressed waveframes. For those of you game savvy, check the next timestamp to skip the section. Compressed waveframes had no real identity when they first launched, barely doing any noticeable damage. The wave fired had the same width and length as regular waveframes and could insta-kill you if you fired it too close to yourself. Now, after this week's patch, the weapon archetype feels much stronger. Also benefiting from the blanket buff to grenade launcher reserves, compressed frames now have a total of 22 reserves, a 20% damage increase to the archetype, and a self-damage reduction, making it less likely to suicide if firing at close proximity. The width of the wave has also been buffed, making it easier to land hits on grouped up targets, and I can tell you this, Hullabaloo excels at bad clearing, big time. Yes, compressed waveframes, outside of flinching mini-bosses and bosses, are not DPS weapons by any means, still outdamaged by adaptive frame GLs by roughly 4,000 points per grenade, having the same rate of fire, making them not optimal for boss damage. Versus special waveframes, however, compressed frames do twice as much damage now, making them useful for clearing both red bars and yellow bars, and of course, they are useless against aerial targets, just don't bother shooting them. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's inspect the perks available on this weapon. Unlike its stasis counterpart, Hullabaloo has a very good perks for PvE, whilst on the PvP side, let's just say you might not want to bother. It still cannot one-shot in PvP, doing about 181 damage, therefore requires 2 full hits to kill, although it is very useful if players are grouped up and you manage to land a kill with a chain reaction roll, but outside of that, adaptive GLs are still much stronger. Clever players can get a single hand cannon hit at a player and follow up with the GL. I'm clutching at straws here, and based on its perk pool, it's built for ad clearing in PvE. Starting with the third column, there are 4 standout perks to choose from. The lesser of the 4 is Field Prep. Now usually this perk is great on GLs, allowing for fast reloads when crouched and increased ammo reserves. Whilst doing DPS, crouching is easy. When moving and shooting, however, it becomes an inconvenience. Therefore, I would avoid this perk, which usually is quite strong on GLs. Also on the third column are the anti-loader perks, Auto-Loading Holster and Envious Assassin. Both are excellent perks on this weapon, with Auto-Loader allowing you to swap weapons without having to worry about reloading, and Envious capable of loading 15 total grenades to the drum, pairing nicely with a damage perk in the fourth column. We will talk about Voltshot in a moment, but first, the fourth column has excellent perks too. Don't bother with Vorpal of course, it only grants a 10% increase to damage on bosses, and as we have already figured out, this weapon is not a boss killer. Golden Tricorn will give the weapon a decent damage increase of 15%, 50% if getting arc ability kills, but locks you into using arc subclasses. Then there is the pick of the bunch. Forbearance has nothing on this weapon. Chain reaction, people! With the damage increase to the archetype and the width of the wave increased, getting kills with this weapon is super easy now, and chain reaction just makes everything explode with massive AoE damage, locking the fourth column up as the best perk. Now, most of you will be looking at the third column and thinking, yes, Voltshot paired with chain reaction. It sounds nasty. Well, it is, but it's overkill. Voltshot forces you to build into reloading the weapon, and bearing in mind that Voltshot only works on the first grenade fired, with the drum only containing 5 shots, it's just not really that necessary. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to be chasing this role too. It has other uses, such as stunning overloads, but in reality, this weapon archetype is only useful for casual content, and with Voltshot and Chain on this GL, I personally feel it's just not necessary. Not having to worry about reloading when using an ad-clearing weapon is more efficient than overall power in this case. My suggestion is to grab an Autoloader or Envious paired with Chain. Shout out also to its origin trait, which grants 5% class ability per kill, useful for class ability spamming. In terms of the god roll, impact, velocity, stability, and reload become absolutely redundant on this weapon, as neither of those stats really affect the wave, therefore I would suggest a handling masterwork. In the first column, quick launch grants 15 points to handling 2 with an extra 10 to velocity. The second column is fix the 2 perks. My preference is high velocity rounds, but neither really have a big impact on the weapon's performance. For the third column, go with the anti-reload perk. My preference is autoloader, although Envious is also a good option. And finally, chain reaction for enhanced ad clearing. Let me know in the comments if your pick is the same as mine, and if not, leave some feedback. Remember, god rolls are subjective to the user. It's a good weapon for casual content, but at the end of the day, you're not going to run a heavy weapon to do ad clearing, are you? The archetype is much improved, but still feels like it needs a little bit more to be competitive. For that, it gets a 3 out of 5. Its perks are great, but again, heavy weapon, ad clearing, nah. On that note, that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section and sub if you're new to the channel and found this video informative. Next up, more new weapons are releasing next week. We will take a look at them and maybe a hunter build video too. This was Plasma Alchemist. Your viewership is much appreciated. Until next time, see ya later.
Fight forever, Guardians!